The outrage over a city school where only 2 students are proficient in math and English.
Where is the mentors? Where is the help?
Fox 45 News questions how a school with a 48% graduation rate continues to get millions of your tax dollars.
This is a tragedy for taxpayers, but also the community.
Tonight, we demand accountability from education leaders who allowed this to happen.
And we dig deeper into Mayor Brandon Scott's claims that this incident proves city schools are underfunded.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Tonight, growing outrage following a Project Baltimore exclusive. A city school student who's passed just 3 classes in 4 years is ranked near the top half of his class at Augusta Fells.
The story has been a hot topic on social media and the local radio, and it's garnered more than 1 million page views on foxbaltimore.com, seen by people around the world in countries like Japan, Australia, Singapore, and Brazil. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Tonight, we're learning the issues at Augusta Fells go far beyond just one student.
As Chris Papst explains in tonight's Project Baltimore report, the school has a history of drastically underperforming.
It's hard to believe that a student with a 0.13 GPA who missed hundreds of days in high school could be ranked near the top half of his class. That is, until you take a closer look at where he goes to school. Tiffany France needs help.
Now, what does that do to his confidence? And as he grows, the years to come, what is his dreams? He don't know what to do. He probably feel like a complete failure.
She just learned her son, who she thought was a senior at Augusta Fells Savage Institute of Visual Arts in West Baltimore, has been moved back to 9th grade.
I don't know what to do with him. I refuse to let him be a statistic and really just be nothing. That's not going to happen on my watch. It's not going to happen.
According to her son's transcripts, in 4 years, he's earned 2.5 credits, passing just 3 classes. He was late or absent to school 359 days. France says she didn't know any of this until February because prior to then, the school never told her, and her son was being promoted through the grades, even though he failed most every class.
How do you come years later and say, this is what's happening, and this is what we have to do for him? He have to start all over because we messed up, so he got to start all over. That's what this is. We messed up, so he got to start over.
Project Baltimore pulled the data for Augusta Fells. We found many students are struggling. The school's attendance rate is 27 points below the district average. Of the 434 students enrolled in 2019, 2 tested proficient in math and English. 2. Yet 48%, nearly half the students, managed to graduate in 4 years. All of this in a school that gets nearly $5.5 million a year from taxpayers. This is a tragedy for taxpayers, but also the community. David Williams is with the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. Kids aren't prepared for the real world. It's that they're going through an educational system that doesn't care about them. The only thing they care about is funding, because if they were truly concerned about education, there's no way that this kid would move up through high school. Williams says the school, from the teachers to the principal to North Avenue, must be held accountable for not just this mother's son, but all the students at Augusta Fells. Francis' son's GPA of 0.13 gives him a class ranking of 62 out of 120, which means 58 other students in his class have a 0.13 grade point average or lower. They'll gladly stand in front of the cameras talking about, Kerwin and how much more money it's going to mean. But when questions like this come up, nope, they run and hide. North Avenue will not interview with Project Baltimore about Francis' son or Augusta Fells. Instead, we received a lengthy statement. In it, City Schools states they mailed France a letter, conducted a home visit, and they told us that France went to the school and met with leadership. But France says none of that ever happened. This statement, while 2 pages long, does not address Francis' son's grades or why he was promoted despite failing classes. It doesn't address how 58 of his classmates have a 0.13 GPA or lower. But it does say North Avenue is reviewing actions that impacted student outcomes at the school prior to this year.
When you talk about Baltimore and the crime and poverty problem in the city, it starts with the education system. I mean, I really hate to talk about this in taxpayer terms because, you know, what the education system has done to this kid and other kids in this school is atrocious and embarrassing.
The school system messed up.
Yeah, big time, big time. Failed him, big time, big time. It's, yeah, like where do I turn? Where do I go? Who helps my son? What happens from here? It's just really, it's overwhelming.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Governor Larry Hogan is reacting tonight, calling the findings outrageous.
If they're persistently failing schools, we've got to shut the schools down, or we've got to, get rid of the principals and the teachers and start over with a new program, because we're failing the kids. That's what it's all about. It's not just an argument about money, and it's not just an argument about, who's right on the issues of how we do education. It's these kids that are suffering.
The governor sat down for an exclusive interview with Project Baltimore on the issues facing Augusta Fells and the entire city school system. We'll be bringing that story to you in the coming days.
Well, tonight, there's pushback from Mayor Brandon Scott as we tried to bring the issue to him during a news conference today. Jeff Abel has been digging into the mayor's response. He joins us live with some answers. Jeff?
You know, the mayor reluctantly did talk about this school probe today, but only after being pressed by our Dan Lamparello.
Is this question about this issue of violence?
I'm hoping to get your reaction to education in our Project Baltimore investigation.
The mayor had come to the police department today to talk about youth violence and only youth violence.
Reminds you of that we make that be clear before we started, just to let you know. Continue with your question.
Our Dan Lamparello asked the mayor about the Project Baltimore investigation, which questioned the passing of a failed student at Augusta Fells Savage Institute of Visual Arts. At first, the mayor attacked the media.
What we have to stop doing is using our young people and families and young people that need help as pawns for media clicks.
The fact is, it wasn't the media who pursued the student's story. It was the student and his mother who came to Project Baltimore, and only after pursuing answers from the school district and even the mayor's office.
I have someone from the mayor's office actually looking into the situation further.
Next, the mayor blamed funding.
We have a school system that has been underfunded by $300 million a year by our state.
That's been a consistent false narrative.
Christopher Summers is director of the Maryland Public Policy Institute and questions whether city schools are truly underfunded.
Baltimore City alone is spending 25.2% above national average.
Finally came the question of control.
Again, because the city does not control the schools.
The fact is, it's the mayor who appoints the Board of School Commissioners, and while the state does fund a large portion of the school's budget, it is the city who controls how it is spent.
I think the biggest issue is, what are we really getting for the dollars that we're spending on education?
Some points of clarification after a student says his education failed him. Well, 3 years ago, a state panel did decide that the schools were underfunded by $300+ million. At the same time, the schools, they said, were overfunded. They received 29% more funding than the national average. We are live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Today, we reached out to every city council member via email. We asked them questions like, how can the city council allow this to happen? Is the council responsible for this failure? What are you going to do to address the concerns? Not one of them emailed us back. We were able to reach the chair of the council's education committee. You see him on the screen there, Robert Stokes, on the phone. He described our Project Baltimore report as concerning. Now tonight, we are also reaching out to the city's school board as we continue to dig for answers into what is going wrong. Keith Daniels joins us live with how the board commissioners are reacting tonight. Keith?
Well, Mary, we wanted to get some answers from the board. We reached out to them about a troubling story about one of their students. And tonight, their response. Tonight, pressing Baltimore City School Board members for a response after an alarming Project Baltimore investigation involving a 17-year-old student who passed only 3 classes in 4 years of high school and earned a 0.13 GPA. Reverend Al Hathaway,
they have to speak up,
leads the group Act Now Baltimore, which aims to bring accountability, transparency, and change to leaders inside City Hall. Hathaway also believes Baltimore City School Board members should be held accountable.
They are appointed, but they feel as though they're not accountable to people. They are accountable to people, and they must address the conditions that are impacting our schools. If our schools are failing, they need to fess up and say that they are, so that we can make changes that need to happen in our school system.
There are 9 city school board commissioners appointed to 3-year terms by the mayor of Baltimore City. We tried reaching out to all of them, despite having no contact information that we could find on the Baltimore City Public Schools website. We did reach Jeanette Richardson, the board's vice chair, by phone, called her at her job at the Neighborhood Housing Services of Baltimore. When asked about the Project Baltimore story, Richardson said, quote, "I will not be commenting," end quote. Then referred me to the board's office executive, Christian Gant, who did not respond to our message. We also made contact with board members Michelle Bondima and Ronald McFadden. Both said contact the school board office for comment, basically refusing to answer questions. We were unable to reach the other board members, Darrell Brooks, Andy Frank, Martha James, Vernon Reed, and Chantel Roberts. Linda Chania, the board's chair, also declined to comment. Ultimately, none of them facing questions tonight about this troubling report.
Public leaders have public responsibility. They have public accountability. We can no longer have persons who are serving the residents of Baltimore City hiding behind a cloak of silence.
Well, if you go to the city's website about school board commissioners, it details the board's function. It reads in part, the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners is responsible for ensuring excellence in education for every student at every level. But there are some tonight who believe the board has failed in that function, at least for one student. Reporting live tonight, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.